From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know.
Fellow conspiracy realist, another company has called for a ban on cigarettes. You remember cigarettes. They're the things that made you look cool in movies. And they're the reason that mascots like the Marlboro Man had such a high historical turnaround because they really were smoking a lot. Can you guess which company I am referring to that has issued a ban on cigarettes or called for it?
I feel as though it's going to be an ironic answer, at least in the Alanis Morissette version of irony, you know, where where it's like it's the cigarette company that doesn't want you to smoke cigarettes. Is that the deal?
Yeah, it's like a spoon on your wedding day or something like that.
No,
Right?
rain on your wedding day. You want the spoon. That's what you use to feed each other cake.
Or a plane crash when you have finally overcome your fear of flying.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
You know what? I think you're absolutely correct, Noel. And I do know that I kind of set you guys up for that one because we all know very well. We talk a little bit about this show before we go on air, surprise. And it's true. Philip Morris International, a gigantic company in the world of commercialized tobacco, has recently said that they will stop selling Marlboro cigarettes in Britain within a decade, and it additionally called on the government of the United Kingdom to ban the sale of all of its tobacco products. This is kind of, I was trying to think of a good analogy. This is not a one-to-one comparison of, say, Papa John's or Domino's calling for a ban on the sale of pizza pie, but it is kind of like them calling for a ban on the sale of cheese, because they're cutting out a very specific, defined thing. Also, Big Cheese, longtime listeners, you well know, Big Cheese would never let a pizza company betray them like that. So I was thinking what we could do is talk about a little bit about how this came to be, a little bit about what it means, and a little bit about how sincere or insincere we think this might be. To answer these questions, we're going to have to first learn just a tad bit more about Philip Morris. It is huge. It is so huge. Right now, it's a Swiss-American company, which might surprise a lot of people. Philip Morris products are sold in over 180 countries. Just to really drive that statement home, there are less than 200 UN-recognized countries, meaning Philip Morris is in the vast majority of countries. The most famous brand they have is Marlboro, and that's when people talk about big tobacco, they're talking about Philip Morris and a couple of other similar companies. But these guys are a giant, or this entity is a giant. So
a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're so old too, right? They're like one of the first players in the game. They've been around forever.
Yeah, Philip Morris, actually, it's funny because for a long time, I, like hopefully a lot of other people, thought Philip Morris was a U.S. company just because here in Atlanta, we live so close to historical tobacco country. But Philip Morris started in London in 1847 with a tobacconist named Philip Morris, and later his son established what would become the company we know today. So first off, this gets a lot of headlines. It's not a conspiracy to say that smoking tobacco is harmful for you. And a lot of people have successfully quit. A lot of people quit and picked it up. A lot of people consider themselves social smokers, et cetera, et cetera. And for decades, companies like Philip Morris engaged in some pretty insidious stuff, up to and including conspiracy to keep people puffing. So if you hear this news, you might be at first initially excited. It sounds like overall a good thing, right? This company appears to be going against its financial bottom line to help people have a better quality of life. However, hopefully, fellow conspiracy realists, we all know that you have to dig in when you see feel good announcements like this from any corporation. Why just the UK? Why just that out of 180 countries? Well, it's because the business probably wasn't doing that well in the United Kingdom. Smoker numbers are plunging there, and there have been increasingly restrictive laws. Like if you don't have to be a smoker to enjoy this, but if you ever want to learn a little bit more about how other governments treat smoking, from like nanny state to laissez-faire, just look at the laws that govern how cigarettes can be packaged. In the UK, they have to be sold in plain packaging. In some other countries, every pack of cigarettes you buy has like a graphic depiction of ruined lungs. In South Korea, this is one of my favorite examples, you can see this, not to get too like filmy about it, but you can see a 3-shot of these two parents arguing, and then a little kid who's like waist high looking up at them and trying not to cough as the smoke inundates their little face. That's what you look at every time you smoke a cigarette in South Korea. So the push that we're reaching a Gladwell-esque tipping point probably with tobacco that you smoke. And already investors have started taking tobacco out of their portfolios. Some international investment companies have said, hey, our portfolio is going to go with a tobacco-free policy. And there was something interesting. The CEO of Philip Morris today, a guy named Jacek Olczak, said to The Telegraph that the UK government should treat cigarettes like gasoline-powered cars, and gas-powered cars are due to be banned in that country, or the sale of them, starting in 2030. So Philip Morris itself, in a statement, very recently said it can see a world without cigarettes. Before I unfold some revelations here, I want to check in with you guys. What do you think? On the up and up?
Well, I mean, they own what? Views, right? They're like snooze, tobacco alternatives. I mean, they're obviously. Yeah.
I don't know about Views. Do they own Views? I know they own Vive and a couple other like smoke or tobaccoless or smokeless tobacco alternatives. Okay, yeah. Here they call them e-vapor products and whatever the other one was. IQOS Vive. I don't even know how to say it. But yeah, I know for sure Philip Morris as a company is investing pretty heavily in like the future of nicotine that isn't in smoke. At least that's what it seems like.
Yes. Yeah. The company wants to generate more than 50% of their net revenue from what they call smoke-free products.
Got it.
And they want to do this by 2025. So get 5 years ahead of that UK ban, which will probably be followed by other bans in other countries. Although anybody who's traveled to Europe probably has noticed that rates of tobacco smoking are already pretty high, in different countries, like in France, etc. And this is interesting to me because it looks like they're getting some great press, but we have to remember this is from an industry that actively conspired to hide the potential health hazards of smoking for a long time. And they also, in 2017, they established something that they called Foundation for a Smoke-Free World. And this foundation, remember what we said about cutesy, innocuous names, right? Names that sound like you can agree with it as long as you don't understand what it's about and who funds it. This foundation has been in a lot of trouble and a lot of controversy since its inception because it claims to be independent, but everybody from the World Health Organization to probably your friends on Reddit are pointing out the massive conflicts of interest with a tobacco company, funding this health foundation. The American Cancer Association, or ACS, even said, Quote, this attempt by Philip Morris International to paint itself as a public health partner is manipulative and dangerous. So they keep going. You can read their statement in full. But I started wondering, what's the long play here? Because corporations, as we discussed in our 2-part series on lobbying, they don't have a conscience. They are not meant to. That's not part of their programming. Corporations also don't have an amygdala, so they can't really experience fear. They can experience self-preservation, right? And this is obviously a self-preservation move, but to what end? I looked at some other things, and I looked at some things that are happening as we're recording. They're not just trying to step away from cigarettes. This is as tempting as it is to say, like, wow, this is like, Exxon saying they're not going to do fossil fuels anymore. It's not quite the same thing, because at the same time they're doing this, Philip Morris is investing in medical technology that is, you can make a very solid argument that it is taking advantage of the medical situations this company has created. They're like, just recently, again, the same time, that official statement hit the headlines like end of July, right? August 8th, Philip Morris got in the news because they have been trying to buy ownership of medical technology that assists with people who have trouble breathing or suffer from conditions that could quite possibly be related to smoking. This is a very strange form of integration, isn't it? From stem to stern. It's kind of like a company that makes lard investing in, a proven diet program. Philip Morris raised its bid to buy a company named Vectura. Vectura is something that a lot of us may not have heard of. They make drugs to treat respiratory illnesses. Full stop. That's what they do. They're going to pay £1 billion, or that's what they're trying to pay, to take ownership of this. And just that move already sent some financial waves around. So with all this in mind, that's the rough lay of the land. We could do a whole episode on big tobacco. It's weird that we haven't yet. I have to ask, what do you think is the ultimate play here? I would assume it's self-preservation. And B, do you think it will work?
I'll tell you exactly what it is. I know, I can see through the matrix right now, you guys. Bear with me. So the new products that they're promoting, at least Philip Morris International, not Philip Morris US, which is Marlboro. This is Philip Morris International.
Well, it's also Altria, right? Altria, yeah.
Altria is like the mothership, and then Philip Morris International is over there, and then the one in the USA is the Marlboro. Marlboro?
You're nailing it, man.
Okay, so the new products, the one, the IQOS or whatever, IQOS, it's a tobacco heating product where you literally shove a cigarette into it and it heats it up to where you're just getting the vapors from it instead of actually burning the tobacco. What else can you put into something like that and smoke it, guys?
Opium, sage,
marijuana.
Marijuana.
Is Marlboro talking about getting into marijuana?
Of course. Why wouldn't you? They've got the infrastructure.
Yeah, Altria, this massive tobacco company, why would they not start growing just metric tons of cannabis and selling it with their products that just heat it up the way, there are tons of vapes out there that people have been using for years, specifically with cannabis, that do that exact same thing. The same thing with their Vive or whatever they call it, where it's just got the liquid nicotine. Do the same thing with the liquid cannabis that you can get right now all over the place in all these states in the U.S. and across wherever they're sold legally and illegally. Dude, yeah, that's exactly what they see in the future. They see weed. Yeah.
And there's something else that happened. They also just bought an inhaled drug specialist company named OTI Topic. That has been successful. Health charities are also up in arm because Vectura makes asthma inhalers. in addition to drugs. And with this, I propose that we pause for a word from our sponsors, who are probably not Philip Morris after I just brought this story in, and we'll return with more strange news. But before we do, I would personally love to hear from people who are quitting smoking or working to quit smoking, and people who are currently smokers. There's no judgment on our end here, but I would love to hear what your experience is and what your take is on Philip Morris's activities. What do you think is at play? conspiracydiehardradio.com. You can call us directly, 1-833-STDWYTK, and we will be right back as long as big tobacco doesn't get us.